Hi, it's that weird time of year between Christmas and New Year's in which time doesn't exist and no one knows what they're doing. And so I thought it'd be a good time to, one, tell you about my reading plans for the year, and two, tell you about my January TBR. Hi, I'm Colleen Delaney. If you're new here, I talk about books and writing on this channel. Today, it's going to be talking about all the reading. I hope you had a lovely holiday and are going to have a nice new year in a few days. I am very much feeling that you don't know what's going on. I'm filming with overhead lighting, which I never do, which is why I've got weird glasses shadows. But I didn't get around to filming today until I think it's 4:45, which is firmly in the middle of the night where I live, this far north. So I'm also in a weird spot because the entire family is home and will be home till January 10th. No, my husband will go back to work before then. But my kids will be home till January 10th. So my house is a disaster, especially because today is December 26th. And this is really the only corner that I can make presentable for filming. Also, it makes sense because I have all my unread physical TBR at my fingertips right here. So let's start by talking about my plans for the year, and then we'll get into the January wrap up. About a month ago, I had a little bit of like a revelation that I have all these really good books that I haven't read. And it's not that I don't want to read them. I want to read pretty much every single one of them. But I very much am like a shiny new thing person. So I decided until 50% of the books on this shelf are read, and when I read a book on the shelf, it moves downstairs, I'm gonna not buy any new books, with some caveats. So I'm not gonna buy any new books that are from Book of the Month. I'm still gonna use Book of the Month. I have so many credits there. I'm still gonna utilize that service. I am going to buy a book if one of my friends has a book that comes out. Now, I don't think any of my friends are gonna release a book in the next couple months, because I am hoping that by May I'll be able to buy books. So I don't think anyone has a book coming out, but I just wanted to add that as like, just in case. I will buy hard copy books of any of my friends who release a book. In terms of ebooks, I am not going to let myself purchase any ebooks, which isn't that hard for me. I don't purchase a lot of ebooks, but I am still allowed to get ARCs. And I'm allowed to check out books from the library. So it shouldn't be that hard. If a book comes out that I'm dying to read, I can just put myself on the waiting list for the library. I'm also not one of those people that like a book comes out and I'm like, I have to read it right now. Case in point, I have not read Fourth Wing, and I think I'd probably like that book, and I'll read it eventually, but like not right now. I thought because my January TBR isn't going to be necessarily set, I would sort of go through these books with you and create one. I'm going to start by going through these three books I have up here, because these are all books I'm currently reading right now. And I'm going to try to finish these before January 1st, but I don't know. It depends. It depends on what the next few days look like. The first is No One Can Know by Kate Ellis Marshall. I'm actually really enjoying this, and I'm hoping I'm going to finish it tomorrow. I'm on page 128, and I mean, the plan is I might read after I'm done with this. I'm probably going to lay down on my cozy bed and read for a while. So I think I'll finish this by tomorrow night, provided nothing crazy happens. It's interesting. It's a thriller, and it's narrated by three sisters. One sister in particular, Emma, who is moving back into their childhood home that they co-own because their parents were murdered and they were there when they were teenagers. And something happened that the police don't know about. So we're following the three sisters and kind of figuring out what happened. I'm enjoying it so far. This author wrote What Lies in the Woods, which I also got from Book of the Month and enjoyed. Next, I got When the Emperor Was Divine. I'm on page 68. I'm going to finish this. I think after I read No One Can Know, finish that, I'm going to just finish this. I've been keeping this book downstairs. I just brought it up because I've been putting it in my purse to read when I might have a moment waiting somewhere. And that's been a bad idea because now I feel like I'm out of the story. Whenever that happens, I'm I read 3 pages and then 5 pages and then 3 pages, and then I feel disjointed from the story. So I'll probably just pick a day and finish this book before New Year's. And lastly, I'm reading Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres, and I'm on page 19, and I literally only started reading this because I left No One Can Know downstairs, And both those books were downstairs a few nights ago. And I just wanted to read a little something before I went to bed. So I think I read just like the prologue and the first chapter. And I like it. I think it's interesting. I don't think it'll be hard for me to finish these 3 books in December. But if I don't, they'll be on my January TBR. And now let's talk about these books. I might shift my camera slightly. I'm really pushing my body to the limits right now. I, like most people, have not done like any physical activity. And so I went for a very brisk 2-mile walk. And now my hip is like, lady, you didn't go for a walk for like 4 weeks. And now you're going to go for a brisk one and think you're not going to be sore? Aging is beautiful. Okay, so now you can also see more like my disorganized top of my bedside table, which is also dusty and I need to dust. And I'm sorry, it's just not happening. Here are all my unread books. Now, I'm going to go through and tell you whether or not I think I'm going to read them in January. Okay, so these 2, Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati and Babel by R.F. Kuang, are most likely DNFs. I think they are DNFs. I started both of them a very long time ago. Babel I started, I think, last January, maybe last February. And Clytemnestra I read a little bit in May. I read about 100 pages of both of them and then just never picked them back up. And I think it might be time to sell them. Yeah. Maybe I'll put that money that I earned via selling them towards my when I'm done on my book buying ban fund, because I'm sure I'll go crazy. But so those are probably not going to happen. Here are 2 that I think I am going to read in January. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which I got from Book of the Month in this December. But it was a Book of the Month a long time ago. It doesn't say when. And I haven't started reading it yet. If by some chance I finish the 3 books that I'm currently reading and want to read, like binge something on New Year's Eve, which I did do last year with 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I will do this book on New Year's Eve. Next, very nice person named Santa put this under the tree for me. It is the 5th volume of Lore Olympus, which I read these very fast. I love them, but I do kind of like to savor them because they're so beautiful and I read them so quickly. I'll read this in like a day. And so I'll probably wait till January to read this. But I'm very excited. It's a weird retelling of Persephone and Hades, in which Hades is like thousands of years old and Persephone's 19. So it's a very big age gap. And it's more like the underworld's like a corporation and Persephone is an intern. And I've been enjoying it mostly because I love the art more than anything. I think it's very, very pretty. And like, I don't know, not whimsical. What's the word I'm thinking of? Ethereal. Very ethereal. I am going to mess up my shelf completely, but you know what? I have been wanting to reorganize this because I don't have it organized by genre, which is kind of what I want it to look like. So don't feel bad for me. After I take all these books out, I'm going to reorganize this by genre. So let's start with another book I got from Santa. It is The Wrong Highlander by Lindsay Sands. This is in the Highland Bride series. It's not the next one I was supposed to read, but I don't think I'm going to read these in order. I think this is going to be kind of like a see one at Half Price Bookstore at the store and just grab it. So I don't know what number this is, and it's not numbered. I'd have to look it up. I hope I enjoy it. It's about, which one? It's about one of the brothers, Rory Buchanan and Lady Edwina McLean. He's a healer. She's a lady. She's going to meet him under a waterfall, much like the picture, which sounds like a perfect place to meet your soulmate in medieval times. Yeah, I think I'll like it. There's like kidnapping. It's just, oh wait, I got this wrong. Rory's not the hero. She thinks he's Rory. She kidnaps him, but it's because Rory's a healer and her father's sick. But she accidentally kidnaps Conran, which is hilarious, and I think I'm going to love this. The last one I read in this series wasn't that good, but I really like the first two because it's just like bonkers. So I'm looking forward to getting back into that. Next, I have Lover Awakened by J.R. Ward. I read Lover Eternal. This is a series from the early 2000s, and it's very early 2000s. And, I don't know if you could enjoy it if you weren't alive then, because you kind of have to put yourself back in that time period. It's because of all the toxic masculinity in here. But Zadist is the hero in this, and I liked Zadist a lot, because he's, badly scarred and, hates everyone. And I'm like, I want to read a love story about that person. And then the heroine's name is Bella. And so, oh, that's funny. This came out pre-Twilight, I'm sure. Because he's a vampire. Hold on. What year did this come out? This came out in 2006, so that's before Twilight. But you're like, why do you know the publication date of Twilight so well? I just know that it came out when I worked at a particular bookstore, and I think it came out, wait, maybe it did come out in 2006. It would have been right around the same time. It definitely hadn't reached Twilight level craziness, because that didn't happen till Eclipse came out, I think. Next, I have Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. I bought this book a while ago, and I actually already put a bookmark in it to start reading it, so it's ready to go. This is about Valinda Lacey, who is I think she's a teacher, and she's starting a school, or no, she has a school in New Orleans, and it gets destroyed by thugs, and then she meets Captain Drake Levesque, and I know the Levesques are like a big family in Beverly Jenkins' universe, that there's a lot of books, and I think maybe even like different generations of that family, in different books. So I'm looking forward to this. I always have to have a historical on the list. Okay, so next we're completely changing gears because I said this was not in genre order, and I have House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. This is a classic I would like to read. I already put a bookmark in it, and I'm not going to read this in January. I just know I'm not. I don't know. I haven't been like in a classics mood. I don't know why, but I'm just more in a genre mood, I guess. Like I want to read like romance or mystery or historical fiction. That's kind of where I am right now. So I'm not going to read that in January. Maybe we'll read it this year though. All right, my next one is The Giver of the Stars by Jojo Moyes. This I know is about like traveling librarians during the Depression, which seems right up my alley because I like historical books and I'm a librarian, so I love reading about historical librarian settings, so that seems like it would be a lot of fun. I just mainly haven't picked this up because it's long and I just haven't done it yet. Let's see, it's over 400 pages, not that long, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm not going to commit to like a very strict TBR in January. I'm going to kind of see where the month takes me. Next, I have The Witchling by Yasmin Gallahorn, and I actually started this and didn't love it. I read the first 14 pages, so not much, and it felt very early 2000s, but more in a way that like I felt like I'd already read this, and I know I haven't, that it just felt like super familiar. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this, if I'm going to keep reading or if I'm going to sell it, but I'm not going to keep reading it in January because I'm not in a witchy mood right now. I mean, I would be for the right book, not for that one. Next, I have Age of Swords by Michael Sullivan. I bought this in May. Last January, I read the first one of this, which is Age of Myth, and I really liked it. And so I actually wouldn't be opposed to picking this up this month. I'll probably depend, let's see, it's 485 pages. Probably depends on how much fantasy versus romance versus mystery historicals that I'm looking at. If I don't have a fantasy book that I'm going to read, I might read this one. Next, I have a classic I bought to read out loud with my kids this summer, and then we just never read it, and it's Comet in Moominland by Tove Jansen. I read the summer book by Tove Jansen this summer, which is like a Finnish classic. And every time I looked that author up, it was like, you got to read the kids' books. And apparently there's a TV show. And this summer, my kids got really into the show Hilda that's on Netflix. And actually, we're going to watch the last season over winter break. But I was like, oh, maybe they'll like this. Hilda feels very Scandinavian, but more almost like Icelandic or Norwegian, I guess. So I thought maybe they'd like this, and then no one wanted to read it with me this summer. So maybe I'll save this and read it next summer. I'm probably not going to read this on my own. This is going to be a read out loud to my children book. All right, next I have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and I actually read the first 60 pages of this, and I don't know what I'm going to do with this book yet. I know I'm not going to read it in January, but I was reading it during a very hard time, and it's made me kind of not want to read it. And so, I don't know. I'm not going to read it in January, but I'm not going to sell it yet. I might eventually want to pick it back up. Getting to the bottom of this stack, so we got some big chunkers now. The Distant Hours by Kate Morton. And I bought this used, and this looks so gross. Maybe I should not read this. Wow. Someone spilled. Is that ketchup? I hope it's ketchup. Kate Morton is a like historical mystery writer. Not mystery in terms of like thriller, but there always is some sort of mystery that has to be solved or not solved, but the reader always finds out what actually happened. This book, a lot of her books are also, they're interesting. She always has 2 timelines. And there's usually like a very elderly person from the first timeline who is trying to figure this question they have out about themselves, and they always die before the question is figured out. But then someone else of the next generation figures it out. This is about Edie, who is an only child and She loves words and mysteries. She finds a letter that should have been delivered 50 years earlier, and it sends her on a journey to the past. She goes to Milderhurst Castle, which is like an old house in Kent, where the Blythe spinsters live, and where she discovers her mother was a 13-year-old child during World War II, like she was sent out of the city. The elder Blythe sisters are twins and have spent most of their lives looking after the third and youngest sister, Juniper, who has not been the same since her fiance jilted her in 1914. So this goes on. We're going to get some interesting mystery, I assume, that's about both World War II, and let's see if she says what year we're in, and 1992. So yeah, interesting. I am a little worried about this stuff that's all over this book. I don't think it's mold. I think it looks like someone like splashed food on it. Gross. Time for another classic I'm not going to read in January. It's the Aeneid. I am reading this very slowly. I'm on page 50, but I think this literally starts on page 47. So I'm planning to just read a couple pages of this every once in a while. I always wanted to read the Aeneid, but it's one of those things where it's like, I think I would have loved reading it with a class, like not teaching it myself, like being a student. And now that I'm not a student and I just have to do all the work by myself and there's no one to talk about it with, less fun. On to stack 2. All right, to start out, we've got The Fifth Mountain by Paulo Coelho. I did start reading this and like really enjoyed it, but then I don't remember why I started reading something else. So I might read it again. I'm only on page 18, so I might start from the beginning again. But this is about the prophet Elijah from the Bible. And it takes place in 9th century BC in a town called Akbar. Elijah's 23 years old and there's like a war going on. I really like Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, that everyone's heard of, but I also really enjoyed Brida. I thought that was a phenomenal book. And then I read The Witch of Portobello and I read The Valkyries. Maybe another one I can't remember. But so when I saw this last year, I've had this for a while. I was like, oh, I want to buy this. I want to read another book by him. And I just haven't read it yet. It's not very long. So maybe I will just try to pick this up in January. See if it moves me. And next I got Broken Bonds by Jay Bree, which I've had for a very long time. I wanted to read like a dark romance, and this was like a famous dark romance. I don't really know anything about it, but I think I will read it this year at some point. This is an interesting book. It's very heavy, which can happen with indie published books. I know like my novella feels about as heavy as a long book. Oh, wow. This has got some interesting language in it that I just opened to, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, but I just saw a very naughty word. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know if I'll read that in January or not. Probably if all I want to read is romance, I might get to it. Then I have Angelica Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. I'm not going to read this in January because this is a fall book. It's about Frankenstein's younger sister who decides to build herself a man. And I bought it not this October, but the October before. I ended up not reading it that October. I ended up not reading it this October. Maybe next year I'll try to read it in September. I have 2 Ellen Hilderbrand books, Winter Solstice and Winter Storms, which are books 3 and 4 of the Winter Quartet. I read book 1 this December and really enjoyed it. You'll get that in my December wrap up, but I really liked it. I don't have book 2 yet. So sometime in the next 12 months, I will try to get book 2. I'll read that one next and then these 2. So here's where it gets tricky to try and read 50% of these because a lot of these are books I am not going to read this month. Or in February. They're just not. So it's going to get tricky. Then I've got Nantucket Nights by Ellen Hilderbrand, which is more of like a beachy summery vibe. It's for 20 years, Kayla, Antoinette, and Val have performed their own special summer ritual. Once a year, the old friends put aside their separate daily lives to drink champagne, swap stories, and swim naked under the Nantucket stars. But on one of those bonding nights, one of the trio swims out from shore and doesn't return. After the surviving friends emerge from their grief, they realize that the repercussions of their loss go far beyond their little circle, and they begin to uncover layers of secrets and their connections with each other that were never revealed on the beach. What has made their friendship strong now has the power to destroy their marriages, their families, and even themselves. So that doesn't sound very beachy, but I really like, I like this. There's a note in it. Someone wrote excellent. So they really like this book. That's what I love about used books. It's a quick read though. It is 233 pages. I don't think I'm gonna read this in January, but I think I'll probably be itching for a beachy read by the time we hit March. Okay, we're continuing to go. I've got Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber. I was planning on reading this next summer, but maybe I will read it earlier since I'm trying to get through these books. Here is the back. Nestled in the mountain shadows of Alabama lies the little town of Wicklow. It is here that Anna Kate has returned to bury her beloved Granny Z, the owner of the Blackbird Cafe. It was supposed to be a quick trip to close the cafe and settle her grandma's estate, but despite her best intention to avoid forming ties or even getting to know her father's side of the family, Anna Kate finds herself inexplicably drawn to the quirky southern town her mother ran away from so many years ago, and the mysterious blackbird pie everybody can't stop talking about. As the truth about her past slowly becomes clear, Anna Kate will need to decide if this lone blackbird will finally be able to take her broken wings and fly. So that's a line from the Beatles song. It sounds like super cute. I think this for me feels more like a March-April book than a January book, but I'll let you know. Next, I've got I Captured the Castle by Dodie Smith, which is a classic that's been on my TBR for a very long time. So I bought it at a used book sale for $3. Again, I don't think I'm going to read it in January. I have 2 Alice Hoffman books, Here on Earth and Skylight Confessions. I just read The Red Garden by Alice Hoffman, and I read that in November, I think. Yeah. And then I read The Invisible Hour in September. So I've read 2 Alice Hoffman books in the last 4 months. So I'm not going to read another Alice Hoffman book in January, but I'm sure by February or March, I will be in the mood for some more Alice Hoffman because I love her. She's a gem. Okay, next we've got The Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend by Katrina Bevelt. One of my neighbors put this in my mailbox for me during the pandemic, and I haven't read it yet. And she also put in there the, I don't know her. It was just like a thing we were doing through our Facebook group, like give people books during the pandemic. And the other book she gave me, though, was The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, which I really loved. So I should read this. I just haven't done it yet. But it's about Broken Wheel, Iowa, and Sarah comes there from Sweden to meet her pen pal. But when she gets there, her pen pal has died, and I think she stays. It sounds kind of like fun and quirky and like a little bit weird, but in a good way. Next, I've got The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. I read, what's the first one called? City of Brass. Summer 2021, I think. Yeah, it wasn't this past summer. It wasn't summer before. So I liked it quite a bit. But I think, and then I bought the sequel, and I was like, I'll give myself a break. But the further away I get from it, like, I don't remember that book that well. So I'm either going to read this book or I'm going to sell it. But it's like high fantasy with genies and political intrigue, question mark. I'll definitely need to read some sort of summary of book 1 if I do decide to read that book. This book I've had forever. My aunt gave it to me. It's called So Many Partings by Kathy Cash Spellman. One of my cousins saw that I had it, and she was like, oh my gosh, I loved that book. Our aunt, our same aunt, who's not either of our mothers, gave it to me. And I was like, oh God, if you loved it, I should probably read it. So it's always on the list. It's Ireland 1874, and you follow a family, which sounds great. I'll probably love it. Let's keep going. I've got The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. I've never read an Ishiguro. I love Arthurian legend, so I thought this would be a good one to start with. This is one I could actually see myself reading in January, so maybe I will read this in January. I think it's about an older married couple who are on like a quest to find their child. And it's a lot about how England is changing at the time period, which historically makes sense, because if you're talking about King Arthur, historically that's like the invasion of the Saxons. So that sounds interesting. Then I have Big Swiss by Jen Began, who I got this book from Aardvark Book Club when I partnered with them a few months ago. And the other 2 books they gave me I really enjoyed. The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry and A New Life by Tom. What the heck was his last name? No, not Tom. A New Life. I can't remember the author. Here is the author's name written out. So this is Big Swiss. This is the 3rd book. I haven't read this one yet. I've got my bookmark already. It's contemporary fiction, but I know it's got a romance plotline in it. I've heard some mixed reviews on some stuff in this book. So because of that, I haven't pushed it to the top of my TBR. But I think I'll get to it on the front half of this year. Look at this. We're almost done. So I have Undressed with the Marquess by Christy Caldwell. I read one of her books this year, and I can't remember what it's called, but it was fun. It was like boating in Regency time, and I'll write the title here so you can see it. So I will definitely read this. Her book was like, it was like sensual, but not spicy. And so that's not usually the romance I read, but her plot was good enough that it didn't bother me that much. So I'll be prepared for it this time. Next, I've got Firelight by Sophie Jordan, which I bought by mistake because I listened to a podcast called Heaving Bosoms, and they did a episode on a book called Firelight, and Sophie Jordan is a romance novelist. And I was like, oh, Sophie Jordan wrote Firelight. No, the book that they were talking about was Firelight by Kristen Callahan. And I love Sophie Jordan though, but this is a YA fantasy, which is not what I read by Sophie Jordan, and I don't really like YA. So I've had this on my bedside table for, I am not joking, since May 2021, I think is when I ordered it for myself for my birthday. Yeah, so yeah, a really long time. I'm not giving it away though because I love Sophie Jordan, so I feel like I'll read it and I'll like it, but it will be missing the spice and it will have dragons. All right, coming up next, I've got The Wolf and the Whale, which I also bought May 2021. This is historical fiction about like a Viking man who ends up meeting Inuit people in a long time ago. And I think I started this book. Oh, you know, I read like, maybe I didn't. There's an envelope in here. That's just on the first page. So maybe I didn't. I thought I read like a chapter of this. But I'm going to be honest. I don't know why I haven't started this yet, because you give me a map like this. I want to read that book. Next, I have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I already put a bookmark in it. Ooh, and it's a bookmark with a picture of Iceland. I love. This is a fun romantic comedy about Chloe Brown, who's like, she's got a chronic illness and she feels like she's not living her life. So she makes a list of things she wants to do to feel like she's living her life better. And she's going to meet a handsome man while doing so. Okay, the last three books are all kind of weird, so I'm just going to show them to you really quickly. How to Keep House While Drowning. I read the majority of this book already this year. There's no page numbers. Oh, I'm on page 57. And I liked it so far. I'll probably keep reading it occasionally. One of those books I'll just pick up and put down. And then I have Lady Susan by Jane Austen. I've read the are there six? Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and Pride and Prejudice. I've read Jane Austen's 6 main novels, but I haven't read her shorter works. And so I thought I would maybe read this, and it's very short. 90 some pages. And then lastly, I have this, which is not on my TBR. This book doesn't count towards my numbers because I just have it here in case I feel like doing research before bed, because I'm always trying to research historical time periods, which will make more sense when my traditionally published book comes out in May. You'll see why I do this. And so I've just kind of had that on my bedside table when I feel like doing a spot of research. So those are all my books. And because I didn't do it already, I'm going to quickly count these and tell you how many of these I have to read to hit the 50% mark. Okay, so there are 35, which is an odd number. But let's pretend there are 34. And so we'll say 50% of me reading everything, I'm going to do math on camera, is 17 books. So I have to read 17 of these books before I can buy any more. Minus book of the month. Mainly just that, because I don't think any of my friends have books coming out before I can actually read 17 books. While I just paused that, I also came up with a tighter TBR to show you. And we're still going to have book of the month picks at the end of this video, if they come out in time. So let's all just keep that in mind. I also have a ton of work to do in January. So here we go, what I'm planning to read in January. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Lore Olympus by Rachel Smith. So that's 2. And then those 2 are definitely read. The rest of these are very much we'll see. And actually just changed my mind and putting one back. The Fifth Mountain by Paulo Coelho. The Wrong Highlander by Lindsay Sands. Broken Bonds by Jay Bree. And The Berry Giant by Kazu Ishiguro. And then also we'll have whatever I pick from Book of the Month, which this month, I think I told you all that I have like a rule now where I have to buy at least 2 books because it doesn't make sense for me to pay for my membership and not get a free book at the same time because I have so many credits from people signing up using my code. So I'm going to buy 2 or 3 books. I'm probably not going to let myself buy more than 3 unless there are literally just like all these amazing books I want to read, but most likely I'll put those on my TBR list on Book of the Month and save one for another month. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and then we'll say 2 to 3 I'll be adding on which is probably still going to be more books than I can read in the month of January, but I always like having options to pick out. So right now I'm going to splice in some book of the month content unless the books don't come out in time. Good morning. It's very loud in my house. It's a mix of loud and quiet. 2 people are still sleeping. 2 people are awake, being very loud in the basement. Book of the month just released their titles. It's quite early. I woke up like 30 minutes ago, but I want this video to come out today, December 29th. So let's get to it. Book one's a cover I've never seen. Interesting Facts About Space. It's a contemporary fiction by Emily Austin. Follow one quirky, true crime-obsessed woman on a delightful, heartwarming journey of vulnerability and self-discovery. It's an early release. Next is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. From Twistmaster Alex Michaelides, a gripping new thriller about glamorous trip to Greece that takes a bloody turn. Because I didn't do a video this month about what I thought the picks were going to be, I did watch a couple, and this was that a bunch of them, and I think this might have been one of the clues. I'm probably going to get that because I really liked The Silent Patient and the Maidens. Next is Mercury, which is a lit fic by Amy Jo Burns. Brimming with family drama and small-town secrets, a touching ode to struggling but resilient blue-collar America. Next is a thriller called First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. Who is Evie Porter? Definitely not who she says she is, but her past is catching up with her, which spells trouble. And next is a lit fic called The Bullet Swallower, which is an early release by Elizabeth Gonzalez James. Hold on to your hat, cowboy. The bullets whiz freely and magic hides within everything in this epic family border saga. That's easy for me. I'm going to get The Fury. Let's see if I'm going to get what else I'm going to get, because I always go, I got to get more than one book. Let's look at our add-ons, make sure that nothing got added on since I checked last night. Ooh, Northwoods, Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham. I liked her other books. I think those are really 2. Okay, so something that got added on is called Northwoods by Amy Peace. It's a crime fiction. I don't think I've ever read a book that's called a crime fiction. A struggling deputy sheriff finds himself over his head when a local teen is murdered in his lakeside small town. The Northwoods of Wisconsin are like my favorite place to go on vacation because I'm a Midwest girl. This is going to make me not want to go there this summer. And then What's Only If You're Lucky by Stacey Willingham. She wrote Flicker in the Dark, which I really liked. And excuse me, another thing, I think it was called All the Dangerous Things. Another book I didn't get because they had to do with the missing child. Ooh, this is totally my cup of tea. Crackling with tension, this campus mystery follows the fracturing of 4 college friends after a murder. I love books about, there's a contest, sorry. I love books about something that happened in college and then you're coming back to it later. It's like a lot of Carol Gubbins books, which I love very much. But this, just so you all know, has a content warning that it mentions sexual assault. It does not say that it's like extremely prevalent. So I might go to Goodreads really quickly and see what it says. I hear someone walking around. I might have a child in here in a second. I have a kid in here. Hold on one second. So I read a bunch of Goodreads reviews, and also one of the things on Only If You're Lucky, it says it's a slow build. Sorry, I have a child right there who's gonna, you gotta be quiet, okay? And
what do I do?
You can just play, just don't play with the crinkly stuff. Why don't you go pick out what you want for breakfast, okay?
I want
A smoothie? Okay, I'll make it for you in a second. I'm not gonna get Only If You're Lucky. I think I'm gonna put that on my TBR and maybe get it in a later month because
I actually want people to use kids with that friend.
Okay, thanks, sweetie. I think I'll get the other mystery, Northwoods, this month. I'm going to add that to my box just because I'm not really in the mood for like a slow build thriller. And then I'm just going to go to my personal TBR and see if I want to add another book to there. So I currently have 2. I might get This Spells Love by Kate Robert. Let me look it up on Goodreads real quick. So I usually don't get romances from Book of the Month, but this says that it's a Friends to Lovers, which is one of my favorite tropes and I feel like isn't done that much. So I think I might, the reviews are so mixed. I mean, most books that have a lot of reviews are really mixed. I don't know. I feel like I've been burned getting romance from Book of the Month in the past. Let me keep looking. That's a maybe. I think I'm going to get it because nothing else is speaking to me right now. So let's see what did I pick? The Fury, This Spells Love, and Northwood. So 2 thrillers and a romance. I think that's a good plan because on my giant TBR shelf, I don't think I have any thrillers. I've got like 1 Kate Morton, but I do tend to like thrillers. So let's get The Fury by Alex Michaelides, This Spells Love by Kate Robb, and Northwoods by Amy Pease. Hopefully I picked some exciting titles. Maybe I skipped the month. I don't know. Either way, thank you for watching. This is insanely long TBR. I feel a little not bad about it being so long because it's not just a TBR for the month of January. It's like a general TBR also for the next few months that will get a little bit of spicy stuff thrown in. I also have a ton of ARCs to read, which I didn't even put on my TBR because honestly, I think I'm just going to try to focus on physical copy books this month. And then maybe in February, I can go back to focusing on ebooks. If you are still here, thank you so much for hanging out for this very long video. In the comments, please let me know the book you are most excited to read in January and the book you are most excited to read in 2024. If you've made it this far and you do not want to write words, please throw me an emoji of whatever sort of weather you are having where you are. We are having very unseasonable, weird weather here. We had like the foggiest Christmas ever, and today it rained all day, and all we keep saying to each other, like we're all a bunch of middle-aged fathers, which I guess technically my husband is like, if this was snow, we'd have 2 feet of snow. That's all we said yesterday on Christmas. If this was snow, if that rainstorm on Christmas Eve had been snow, none of us would have been able to come today. I digress. So thank you for watching, for hanging out. I hope there are some books on my list you're excited for. If there's something that you absolutely love, please tell me so I can get nice and excited to read it. And as always, I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. I'll see you soon.